Hello, welcome to Beach View, our podcast where we talk about all sorts of things. Today we have a very cool topic. I'll let you introduce it.
I'm not sure I'd call this topic cool, but
I gotta hype it up.
So I want to talk about the exploitative way video games are often monetized these days.
Oh, tell me how you really feel. Well, let's get into this because I was reading a little bit up on it, and I already had a basic idea, but go ahead, tell me the basics.
Well, first I want to get into why I wanted to talk about this.
Okay.
A little bit of backstory. So the podcast I talked about last week, actually, Game Studies Study Buddies, has recently done 2 books on the gambling industry. And one of the things they said in those episodes was how gambling industry practices were in many games, which is something I already knew quite a bit about, but I've been thinking about it more lately because of that.
Oh.
And also, I started playing a game recently that had some of these systems in it, so it's just a few things that have gotten me thinking about it lately.
Okay. I didn't know that the gambling industry had anything to do with, gaming.
Right, it's so some people argue that it's not the same thing, and, a lot of people don't even think of the thing as gambling, but they have many of the same sort of, tactics and purpose.
Oh. So, what do you mean by that?
So, yeah, to get players to, put in a lot of money, basically.
Okay.
Including, more than they might be comfortable with. And they both target high spenders. So,
Ew.
There's more to it than that, but yeah, there's overlap there. So, the basics are, there are several mechanics in a lot of modern games that are designed to make the players play as much as possible or spend as much as possible, or both.
I can see that because it's some of this stuff, and I'm sure you'll get into it too, but it's kind of like you have to buy things or spend some money in order to win. I guess psychologically, it's the same kind of thing, or it gives you an edge up in winning, I guess. So it's kind of the same psychological process as gambling. I never thought of it like that before.
Well, that is part of it, but there's also more. So, they want players to spend more for obvious reasons.
Right.
And they want them to play more because they're more likely to spend when they play. And also, if it's a multiplayer game, players who play a lot mean that there's always someone for other players to play with. Even if they're not spending money, they're still helping out.
Mm-hmm.
So, single-player games, though, also focus on playtime. I saw recently parts of a document, that was an internal document, where a company was saying, look, these sequels got higher playtime than their previous games. So, companies are interested in this, even if it's not for multiplayer.
I gotcha.
Also, some games will do, tie-ins and brand deals, which I imagine having a player base that plays a lot means they're more likely to get these deals, and they can probably get better rates on these deals.
Yeah, I remember when you were talking about video game tie-ins on one of our previous podcasts.
Well, that's a different thing. I'm talking more.
Oh.
So a game I played a while back called Rocket League. It's car soccer. You drive a little RC car around and play soccer with it.
Okay.
And when Batman v Superman came out in, I think, 2016, they did a tie-in where you could get the Batmobile.
Oh.
And they advertised the Batmobile, so, it's like advertising for the movie.
Yeah.
So a lot of games will do stuff like that.
I see. That's pretty cool. Pretty smart on their end.
So, I want to get into some of the history here.
Okay.
Now, I'm not an expert on the history, but I do know a bit. So, these systems have their roots in the late 90s, early 2000s, a lot of them. Browser-based games and MMOs really start blossoming during this period, and a lot of them, or maybe not a lot of them, but some of them start having small purchases for in-game items, which are called microtransactions.
Okay, wait, hold on. What are MMOs?
Massively multiplayer online games.
Oh, okay.
So it's basically, are you aware of World of Warcraft?
I've heard of it, yes.
Okay, that's the most popular one, but they're just games where you, like, play a character, and then, like, some of them are purely social, where you're just, like, there to, like,
Mhm.
hang out and do stuff. Some of them have more, like, game stuff attached to it, where you're, like, leveling up your character and doing dungeons with other players and stuff like that.
Ah, gotcha. Is Call of Duty one of them? I've
No.
heard of that one a lot. Okay.
Yeah, that's a bit of a, like, because, you get these games now that have, like, 100 players playing concurrently, but they
Yeah.
go in matches. Like, the crux of an MMO is that you are playing with a lot of people in the same area.
Gotcha.
Like,
Okay.
you have a big world to go through, and, rather than, like, going into a match, you have, like, well, you can go into matches in MMOs, but you have, like, a general area that you hang around in.
Okay.
So, before this, your monetization model is buy the game once and that's it, more or less, with maybe some expansions coming out later, which are also one-time purchases.
So, and I would guess that that's largely because of the like how technology has changed. Because
Yes.
right, then it used to be like you had to buy the physical game, and
Mm-hmm.
then once they started doing like digital releases or whatever, I'm not sure what they're called, but you know what I mean. Like
Yeah.
it's a different way of doing it.
Yeah, that's part of it, but part of, there's other things there. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, as far as I'm aware, like, these systems might be a bit older. Like, I know MMOs go back further than that, but I don't know their monetization before that. But, like, yeah, so you start seeing microtransactions, but they're small at first.
Mm-hmm.
They start to exist at their time. They're not the dominant model. There's also the subscription model, which a lot of MMOs use,
Mm-hmm.
which also starts to really develop at the same time, but that's basically like your two models. You either have the, like, monthly recurring payment,
Ooh.
which not every game can do, or the one-time purchase sort of deal, or maybe, expansions come out.
So the subscription is kind of like more like a I think of it in a way in terms of like streaming server like Netflix is
Yeah,
for shows, it's like for
or a
games.
magazine.
Okay, yeah, a magazine, yeah. True.
So, around the mid 2000s, like 2005 ish to 2008 ish, you start seeing some changes in the industry.
Mhm.
So, like you mentioned, the internet connectivity, like, at least in America, I don't know about other countries, but the internet starts becoming much faster and more widespread, throughout this period.
Mhm.
And a lot of consoles that get released during this time start to incorporate that more.
Gotcha.
Meaning you see a lot more downloadable content, or DLC for short, in this era, because it is much more possible than it used to be.
Mhm.
And this new DLC is usually different than expansions in that it's multiple smaller bits of content, as opposed to expansions, which were usually fewer large bits of content.
Okay.
And this is compounded by two other factors happening at the time. So, graphical fidelity is increasing. This is the start of the HD era, which means
Mhm.
that games generally cost more time and money to make than they used to. So this model becomes a way to recoup increased costs.
Okay.
Because generally, the smaller DLCs have a larger return on investment than games or expansions do.
Gotcha.
So that, plus the fact that the games industry is expanding greatly during this time, which means you get bigger businesses that have big business interests in mind.
Mhm.
So you don't want to make smaller games that have a modest profit, you want big games with big profits.
Right. Cuz it's all about the money.
And yeah, even if even if doing the smaller game thing would be more sustainable, and potentially better in the long run, it's, you want as much money as possible.
Yeah. And I'm guessing the bigger games have more like functionality or options or
Yes.
or
And they
make
look
it more
better.
enticing. Right. They look more realistic,
Mm-hmm.
better experience,
Well,
I guess that's subjective.
yeah, that's very subjective.
Yeah.
But around this time, you also start seeing an explosion in mobile and browser games due to smartphones and social media, respectively. This is the era of the iPhone and of MySpace and Facebook really taking off.
Mm-hmm.
And these games start to adopt microtransactions or energy mechanics as their monetization models, which again had existed prior, but they're really starting to come into fruition in this period. So energy mechanics are game systems where a player has a limited amount of energy to spend on an action, and if they use up all that energy, they can either wait for it to replenish or pay money to replenish it.
So that's like if you're playing a game and like your, I guess, character in the game, like you have to either, like you're saying, spend money to get more energy, or what happens if you don't? You die?
No, you just have to wait.
Oh.
So you have a limited
Okay.
number of actions, and if you don't spend money, you can wait.
Okay. That's an interesting concept. Never knew that was a thing.
Yeah, Farmville, if you remember that, was big on this.
Yeah. Sounds familiar.
It was all over Facebook in the early days of Facebook.
Well, I was on Facebook in the early days of Facebook, so I should remember that, but I don't really remember.
Oh, okay.
I
Well,
remember the name. I don't remember much about it.
it had that energy mechanic and was
Okay.
one of the biggest examples at the time of it.
Gotcha.
You also start seeing more multiplayer games start to adopt microtransactions. For example, many shooters will start selling new guns that you can get.
So, and I want to ask this. So, when you say microtransactions, we're talking about small amounts of money that you have to pay to get something, right?
Yes.
But those add up and they keep,
They can,
compounding, I'm
yes.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you can
Okay.
see why, these models start to proliferate, because before you have, where a player will purchase one game, so you get that amount of money per person, maybe a bit more if you develop expansions, but those usually also require less work, but still quite a bit of work. And now you can get more and more purchases from a single player with microtransactions for less work than you're doing once you have the game established.
Makes sense. Okay.
Right, and so, yeah, during this time, this is really the, birth of, well, not birth, because these exist prior, but this is really, the big expansion of these models for those reasons I outlined, to make lots of little purchases rather than a few big purchases.
Mm-hmm.
And this continues as the years progress, so, these factors continue to proliferate. Big games get even higher fidelity and thus are even more expensive to make, and these companies get even bigger and start consolidating, which means they want, even more big games, big returns on investment.
So, what do you, I guess it depends on how you like to play or what types of things you like to play, but I was going to say, do you like the big games? Do you like the smaller games? It's really just depends on the person, I guess.
Yeah, it depends on the person. Personally, I prefer smaller games.
Yeah.
That's just more my style.
Well, and then is there, more of a space for smaller games because all these big games,
oh,
and
yeah,
you're
absolutely.
saying, okay, that's good.
And part of it's just, the development of online purchases,
Mm-hmm.
bring the cost down for publishing a game a lot, because it's a lot easier to upload it than to, make a bunch of discs and the box those discs come in and all that.
Yeah, that's true.
And you start seeing a lot more development tools become more accessible to more people. So, there's more people who can make games than previous.
That's awesome. So whenever a game is rolled out and I know they have updates and stuff like that. So I'm guessing you don't have to pay for updates to a game, right?
Usually, no.
Yeah. And so maybe those microtransactions is the thought process that it helps to pay for those kinds of things, or is that not?
In part,
Or is
yes,
it just
but also
profit?
yeah, they like microtransactions. These companies do, because again,
Mm-hmm.
they can get a lot of little purchases, which means there's more money they can get, and it also means the game has a much longer tail on it.
Yeah.
If you release a game that doesn't have them, you get the initial wave of purchases and then a few more down the line, but that's about it.
Yeah. I gotcha.
Right. So, these companies continue to develop and master these systems to get these small purchases, and then they start weaponizing them,
Oh.
for a lack of a better term.
So, what do you mean by that?
Yeah, so that's what I'm getting into next.
Okay.
So, like I said, the goal of all this is to get players to play a lot and or spend a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And their biggest source of income for most of these games, not all of them, but they usually try to target players that they call whales, and that means someone who spends a lot of money on the game.
Well, it's the same in the gambling industry. The terminology, that's kind of funny.
And yeah, so a lot of these games want to like attract or create whales so they can get a lot of money out of them.
So they're targeting that kind of player.
Mm-hmm. But they also try to, like, again, get all players to pay more and play more.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to go through some of these systems.
All right, let's hear it.
So first, I want to get into how you purchase stuff. So most of these games involve buying some sort of points, which are then used to buy stuff in the game. So you don't buy directly, you don't buy an item directly, you buy points, and then you use those points to get the item.
So basically, you can play the game for free or from the upfront cost that you pay to get the game, right?
Mm-hmm.
But so you're perfectly capable of playing the game without microtransactions.
Yes.
But if you want to, have cooler items or whatever it is, whatever the game entails, then you have to pay to get more stuff. But
yes,
they say, you can play this game by itself without buying any, without any further purchases. Like, you're perfectly capable of doing that. But if you want to enhance your experience, you pay for stuff along the way, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And yeah, since you mentioned that, like what you brought up earlier with how, you can pay for, like, to be able to win more.
Yeah.
A lot of games do the way you mention it, where, like, you can pay and it might give you a better experience or make your character look cooler or stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it doesn't directly affect your ability to win, but some games are like that, where, like, if you're not paying, you're having a much harder time of things.
Gotcha.
And again, with that, like, how you purchase for points. So I've read before that this exists sometimes for legal reasons. But regardless, the effect of it is that it obfuscates how much in-game items are actually worth.
Mm-hmm.
Because the exchange value of points aren't set. You get more points if you buy in bulk. So, for example, you might be able to buy 100 points for $1, but if you buy $20 worth of points, you get bonus free ones.
Oh.
So, when you're calculating the cost of an item, you're always trying to, like, so is that, $10 for this item, or is it actually closer to $8?
Right.
There's also the way that free-to-play games specifically use these points. So when you start playing the game, you'll usually get a lot of free points, and that these then dry up later to try to get the player hooked so that they get invested in the game, and then they'll continue playing, and then, once the points dry up, they're more likely to buy later on down the road.
Psychological warfare is what that is.
And then you have loot boxes, which is the common term for something you buy that gives you a random item.
Do you know what it is before you buy it?
You know what it could be.
Okay.
Like, they give you a list of what they could be.
Oh, it's like a little surprise.
Yeah. And randomization can be an issue because random rewards are more enticing to the brain than set ones. I'm sure you've heard about this. There's been studies on it and stuff.
Yeah, I've seen this at a fundraiser where you can pay like $50 or $100 and you get like a random piece of jewelry from a, jeweler, and you don't know what it's going to be, and like people love it, and I'm always like, but what if you hate it? Like,
yeah.
I don't know.
It's but yeah, that is a, like, common psychological thing in people.
Yeah.
Is that we really prefer, or, well, not always, like, I don't want to speak for everybody, but we often prefer, like, a random reward than a set one.
Huh.
That, for whatever reason, that just very exciting.
It's funny.
And this is, like, one of the main places where they can be similar to gambling. That this is very similar to a slot machine.
Right, exactly. You're taking a chance.
You have the randomization. They also usually use the same sort of like flashy lights and sound and animations that a slot machine does that, specifically tuned to try to like engage you and get you to keep going.
It's so crazy. It's just crazy how like I guess companies and things that are for profit, they like trigger you almost like it's like they entice you to do things and it's, all for the sake of making some money.
Yeah.
But I mean, I guess you have willing participants, so it can go either way.
Well, and that's when you get into like gambling addictions, and it's depending on how different people like read that, but I think it's kind of messed up that
Yeah.
there are people that like, as far as I understand gambling addiction to work, it's more of a compulsion. It's not really something you have control over. So like these are
Right.
designed to sort of ensnare a person like that and get them to spend a lot of money.
Right. It's like your brain is like slowly conditioned to get that dopamine rush. And it's like you keep seeking it out and seeking it out. It's similar to like addicts in a way, but I never thought of it being a part of gaming, but it definitely is. Now that you're explaining it to me, it's like, oh, I just never thought of that before, but it's definitely similar.
Yeah, and these can create that slot machine effect of constantly spending, that mentality of just one more go, I'm due for a big win. I was so close last time, I just gotta keep going, like that sort of thing.
Yes. That's kind of scary if you think about it.
Right, and not every game, like, employs these, but there are some games that do, and there are some games where that is the core of their, like, gameplay model, where in order to play the game, you need characters, and you need to get those characters through, spinning for them, basically.
Right.
And as a bonus, people like the characters because they think they're cool or cute or sexy or what have you.
Yeah. Right. So, do you buy stuff in games?
Sometimes. It's been a while since I have.
Yeah.
It's just I don't play, well, I play one right now that I started playing, but, like, it's been a while since I played any game like that is, free-to-play multiplayer that would have, like, a lot of these microtransactions in it.
I gotcha.
Then there's also systems that weaponize FOMO.
Yeah.
So a lot of your purchasable items will only be available for a limited time.
Yeah.
So, there's really, if you want this cool item, you need to pay to get it within the time limit. Or sometimes they'll do limited time items that you have to play a lot for. Like, you have to really play a lot to unlock them.
I mean, that is like genius on their end because it's like you'd like trigger something in these players and it's like, oh, I gotta get this, I gotta do that. It's pretty genius on part of the company, whether it's, a moral thing or not, like that's up for discussion, but I'm just like, they will do anything. And this is, corporations in general will do anything to like entice people,
Mm-hmm. And there's also the Battle Pass, which is the common name for a type of system that has a limited time and you get rewards for playing. So, these often have a free track and a paid track, and the paid track has better rewards, again, weaponizing FOMO. Right? Because if you don't pay before the Battle Pass expires, you'll miss out on all these cool rewards you get.
Right, and you may not perform as well, right?
Well, it depends on the game. Some of them do have, like, performance-based things. Some of them are just, like, cosmetics and stuff.
Okay.
So, they're, like, just, like, with the FOMO, they also are designed to drip feed rewards, which, also gives the player dopamine.
Mm-hmm.
So, it encourages a lot of playtime so you can complete the Battle Pass.
I could just totally see how this plays out, like how it works,
Right, and these are also, like, designed to try to convert free players into paid ones. Like I said, a lot of them are, like, have a free track and a paid track, and at some point, you run out of free rewards, but the paid rewards keep going. So it's very much a sort of thing of like, the fear of missing out, but also like just, you start losing that dopamine from getting those rewards. And it's like, well, what if you paid? You could get all that back. You could get all these cool rewards.
I'm telling you, they're so tricky.
Right, and these are often paced such that a player has to play pretty regularly for the entire time limit of the Battle Pass to complete it, to get everything that's in it. So they usually last like 1 month to like 3 months, and they encourage players to keep coming back and keep playing so they can complete it, especially if they put money down. Because it's like, well, you don't want to leave money on the table. You spent,
right.
You've got the sunk cost fallacy going there.
You need to come back and play because the more you play, in theory, the more money you could spend, right?
Kind of.
Yeah.
Well, that's what they're thinking. They're certainly, they want people to play more because if they play more, they're going to be more invested and more likely to spend money on it.
Right. Or I guess some of it's the more players you have and the more time they log. I'm sure there's some, advertising, in some games. Is that right?
Most people wouldn't frame it as advertising, but like I said, those tie-in stuff where a new movie will come out and they'll have a skin that comes out, and yeah, like I said at the top, I'm sure the more players they have, the more the better they are able to make those deals and get more money from those deals.
Right, get more money from them from other. Yes, exactly.
Right. Okay. Yeah. And another way these games encourage a lot of playtime is with daily quests.
Ooh.
So that's every day you log in, there are new things for you to do to get some reward. And it'll be some sometimes it's just general things like play 3 matches, win a match. Sometimes it's off the beaten path stuff, like go to a certain location in the game, use a certain strategy, stuff like that.
And what are the purposes of those? Is it the same thing? It entices you to play more?
Yes. So, it gives you something to do every day, and some of those are off the beaten path, so it encourages more playtime with the game. There's also the FOMO response, which is, in some of these games, the quests expire, so you need to make sure you're coming back to do them, because otherwise you're missing out.
Gotcha.
And so MMOs have had these for a while, and the generous interpretation is that since these games are often social spaces, you want to log in and hang out with your friends.
Right.
Daily quests give you something to do while hanging out. You can be like, oh, I'm going to log in, and then, it's just something sort of menial to do while you're talking with your friends.
Yeah.
The more sinister interpretation is that this is to encourage players to keep coming back every day and to put more and more time into the game.
Right. And there's always the kind of punishment and rewards, viewpoints. It's like, hey, we're doing this so that you have a fun social thing to do with other players. And then on the other end of it's like, well, we're doing this so that you come back and play more and we end up getting more money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's also events and stuff that seasonal events or ones based around holidays and stuff where there'll be something for you to do to unlock new seasonal based cosmetics and whatnot. And those are limited time, obviously, so it's FOMO, but also again encouraging playing a lot, because some of these you can just pay for them, pay getting money out of them, but some of them are you need to play a lot in order to unlock it, play a lot before the event ends to get the cool Halloween item or something.
Is that enticing? To me, it's whatever.
Yeah, well, it doesn't, work equally on all players, but this does work on some people.
Yeah.
Who, really want a cool skin in the game or stuff like that.
Right.
And speaking of, so, these cosmetics and, emotes and different things like that, special weapons, special, characters, stuff like that, all of these things allow a player to express themselves in the game, and that's important for a lot of people. And something a lot of these games do is make it so that most of the good ones require paying money, and then the free ones either suck or require you to play the game a lot to get.
Oh, okay.
So again, there's that encouragement of, play more and or pay more to, like, be able to express yourself in the game.
Right. Huh. So many tactics.
But yeah, these all come together and again, as I keep hammering on, try to get players to play a lot and pay a lot.
I feel like you see it across the board with stuff, and it's, to me, I get it. On one hand, like, I understand, like, the more money you can make off of something, the greater ability that the company has or the developer has to developing new games or new cool stuff, and like putting out more content for players, which is always good for the players, right? But on the other hand, it's like, yeah, but at what point do you go from, funding the next development to just being super greedy and, almost like preying on people psychologically? It could go both ways. And it's hard to reconcile, like, which one,
well,
what's the right thing.
I'm certainly on the latter side of that. Like, I think it is definitely at the point where this isn't just a way to get some extra money. It's like trying to psychologically manipulate players into playing more so that they can increase their profits.
And it's just like, like I said, you have willing players, but at the same time, targeting these different, like, our brains are so malleable, and that, especially depending on your personality type and if you have addictive personality traits, etc., like, they're really targeting these things in people to get this action from them. And that's always, to me, like, real creepy. I don't know. I don't know what other way to describe it. It's creepy. And, I think about it in the way that, so I use, like, language learning software, like, it was on the computer and now it's on my phone, So I've used, like, Rosetta Stone, and that's one where you pay up front, you get the disc to learn a language, Now it's on your phone. It used to be, and you could still get the discs, but I have the app on my phone, and I've already paid for it, like, years ago, and so I use it every now and then. There's nothing else you have to pay for. I also use Duolingo, which is another app, and it's free. However, it's like, it's teaching you this language. It has all kinds of different languages, but there's all this stuff that you can buy, or you get bombarded with advertisements every time you finish a lesson, or, you know what I mean? It's like, there's so many, like, steps. They're like, buy Duolingo Plus to get this stuff. And I don't like that at all, because to me, like, education should be free. So, and to me, that's what it is. It's learning a language. And I don't like that kind of thing. So that's how I relate to this. And what you're saying in the video games is, there's all kinds of different ways to do it, but why do we have to pay for this? So why do we have to pay to get a better experience? Like, shouldn't everyone have a better experience? And then you get into the whole, the upper echelons of society always get the better things, I don't know. I just don't. Yeah. That goes into a whole thing, but I feel you on that.
Yeah, so I wanted to talk a bit about, like, how this affects people. Mm-hmm. So I don't have any, like, hard data on this. I'm not sure there is any, not that I'm aware of, at least, because I don't know. I mean, some people might have researched this, but it's relatively new, and, like, the companies certainly aren't that interested in researching this, so.
Yeah.
But I have heard a lot of anecdotes about this. Like, there's a reason people compare these systems to gambling, and it often, like, preys on the same people who are prone to gambling addictions, and a less euphemistic name for whale is a gambling addict.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's true.
And I've seen, and read many stories of people who spend more money than they, like, felt they should or would otherwise because they, like, got addicted to these systems in these games.
Yeah, I can definitely see that.
And I've also seen some people, lament their inability to play games they think look fun because they have these systems in them and know it would be a problem for them.
Right. And that's sad.
Yeah. And on the not paying side, I've seen plenty of people, like, say, they had to stop playing a game because they had an unhealthy relationship with it, either directly because of or in part because of, the systems that encourage people to play a lot, and then that gets them to play for the rewards more so than the intrinsic enjoyment of the game, so they end up playing longer than they would otherwise, and they, like, get to a point where they're like, okay, I need to stop this.
No, I've known somebody that in the past, like, was thinking about leaving her husband because he was basically addicted to video games, and just no matter how much they talked about it, like, he would not stop. And I mean, that's like a problem, like when your marriage is falling apart because of video games.
Yeah, and I mean,
It's
that's
crazy.
existed for before these systems really matured, but these systems don't help.
Right. Exactly.
So yeah, that's my piece. I don't know. I think it sucks that this happens. That a lot of the, like, main ways that the games industry makes money is off of these exploitative, like, monetization models. And I think it wasn't always like this, and it doesn't have to be like this. People sometimes argue, well, they're a company. They need to make money, and there are better ways to make money that don't require all this.
I agree. And I really don't like, again, I'm bringing it to this. Like, I don't like how it's kind of classist. Like, it's like, if you are willing to pay more money, if you have more money to spend, you can get this ultra cool experience. And of course, I'm speaking out of turn because I don't actually play video games. So I'm just saying, like, how I feel about this practice in general across different industries. But I really honestly don't like, again, I'll relate it to, I have Hulu subscription and I still get bombarded with ads every time I try to watch a show. But if I pay more every month, I can get it ad free. Well, like, I don't want to pay more every month. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's that, it's like the whole, and it's like how, I don't agree with anything that gives you a better, cooler, enticing, like, psychological warfare kind of thing. Like, if you pay more, I don't like that whole thing. And I do think it definitely slides into that, almost, immoral category. Not everybody, not all developers are like that. Not all
Right,
games are set
yeah.
to do that. But I think that practice, like you said, is definitely to exploit people and how their brains work. And it's something not everyone can control. You just say, well, stop playing, stop buying stuff. Not everybody has that control.
Mm-hmm. And I think, a lot of these games are, like, made for kids or are something that kids can enjoy.
Yes.
And, like, that especially sucks for them if they have, like, they can't buy things on their own, so
Exactly. And
they
that
either
to
have
me is
to,
terrible.
yeah, beg their parents to, for this
Right,
stuff,
and then they feel less than if their
Yeah.
parents are like, no, you can't do that. They feel less than other kids. And, like, you can't tell me that doesn't shape their lives. Yeah.
Or if their parents are unable to afford it.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, it could be, no fault of the parent. They just can't afford to spend extra money on that. And then, the kids' friends are, of course we're extrapolating, but it's just
that absolutely happens.
Yeah. I mean, that happens though. And it's like you hate to see that.
Like, there have been things about kids making fun of other kids for being a default skin, like, not
Yeah, which
paying
is
in money to
horrible.
get, like, the cool skin, they're just stuck with the default.
And kids don't know that in the grand scheme of things, that does not matter.
Right.
But you're a kid, and this is what your peers are talking about and doing, and you want to fit in, That's very sad. I don't like it. Now I want to go find a bunch of kids playing video games. Here, take my money so you can get the cool skins. I don't like the social injustice of video gaming. I think I found a new cause. At least as an adult, and one who doesn't have an addictive personality, you can, you can make those decisions on your own. But
yeah,
I do feel bad for people who really, really want what they can't have. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so if you don't have anything else, I'll take us out.
No, that's all I got. That was, I like that conversation because I had never likened video gaming to gambling, but obviously there's a definite similarities there. I'm thinking about it all different now.
Yep. All right, well.
All right.
That's been our podcast, Beach View. We hope you enjoyed and come back next time for hopefully a less sad topic.
We'll try our best.
Bye.
Bye.